My ancestors, the Jordans had been here since 1800, my mom's people. They were from Western Europe and French and Western Africa. My dad's people were from Martinique or an island near Martinique. But there was a lot of problems in New Orleans like then. So they moved to St. Martinville, which is up the country. But they eventually came back to New Orleans. They were free. I mean, but yes, somebody was a slave, but somebody jumped the fence. Our genealogy is on my cousin's restaurant. You ever heard of Little Dizzy's? My mother grew up on St. Anne, like they say, in Treme. That's where she grew up. My daddy grew up in basically the same area. But see, they took it to the next level with the color. As you got older, in my daddy's time, if you were darker than that, you couldn't get in a party. The brown bag test. And so what happened was when people got tired of that in the 60s and we found out who we really were, say bump all of that, this is when they started mixing the light skin and the black. And that's why people teach their kids you're not better than anybody and there's nobody better than you. But I was born by a midwife on Laperouse Street. The story goes I wouldn't stop crying, so they gave me a teaspoon of whiskey and I slept for 3 days. They thought I was dead. But anyway, so my mother and daddy bought a house on Benefit Street in Sugar Hill. 1926 Benefit Street. Till the age of 13, I lived there. And it was a pretty good life. I was a child. I enjoyed it. Walked to school every day. I went to Epiphany, which was a Catholic school, and walked home if weather permitted. It was like 14 blocks a day. This is my house. This is Miss Collada's house. That's the white folks. Then Julie was my best friend. Her mom and dad owned a cleaners on Gerard Street, so they were like, they had money. Then when you came out of my aunt's house, you walked, and that was my uncle's house. It was a lot that was given to him, I guess, from my grandfather. He built his house right there. And then you go around the corner, it was my grandmother, her house with my aunt who lived with her, and then one of my mother's sisters and her kids lived in the same house with my grandmother. When I had to move away from there, that hurt. I cried because I did not want to leave my friends and my family. And that's when they went to Pontchartrain Park, the first black subdivision ever built in Louisiana. And I went to prep, which made it a lot easier because once I got to high school, I had new friends. When you go down Press Drive, behind the Walmart, those houses were for white folks. They were called Gentilly Woods. After they built Gentilly Woods, the black contractor came up with, he was going to build this black subdivision with brick homes for blacks. You had people with money. My mom and them had no money. I mean, but they don't have no bank accounts. You know what I'm saying? They could pay the rent. I mean, the house note. You know what the house note was in 1962? $118 a month. As my ex-teacher, who was a coach at my high school, who lived behind me, you pay all that money and you eat oatmeal for dinner. Like after you bought the house, you can't afford to eat no food. Pontchartrain Park was the place. They had a contest every month and put signs on the best lawns. We knew not to walk on grass. I will not walk on grass now.
What about when you go back there? What do you see now?
I don't like it. Since Katrina, it flooded. Okay. Yes, it did. It's just so different. This is my thing with New Orleans, and it will always be. Where are all the people? They didn't come back. I have cousins that didn't come back. Pontchartrain Park was beautiful. I used to stand at the bus stop in the morning looking at that golf course and those trees. They were beautiful. We sold it right before Katrina. you know, we evacuated in Betsy because we lived in the park. Virgie and I went back to our old neighborhood by my uncle's house with his 10 children. I remember that night, my uncle opened that door and it was blinding rain, wind, lightning. I was like, ooh, that's enough. They had to get my daddy out because he didn't want to leave. And the National Guard had to get his behind in the boat. For Camille, it was 1969. We were living in the park. I guess I was 19 or 20. My daddy didn't want to leave, so I stayed with my daddy. My daddy drank a fifth of liquor and went to sleep, and I was by myself. But Camille, Mississippi got it. They took us for a ride to Mississippi. People died having hurricane parties. It was awful. That was the first time I'd ever seen what a hurricane could do like that. We were uptown when Katrina happened on 1635 6th Street. And this was a Saturday. They were still talking hurricane, but I was like, girl, I'm not worried. You know, I hopped on the streetcar and went to the casino. They were calling me at the casino. What are you doing at the casino? I said, well, I came to the casino. That thing took up the whole Gulf of Mexico. When I saw Negan giving his pitch and my pastor at the time, and when they said the Catholic churches weren't having mass, I was like, oh, it must be pandemic. Yeah, I said, we'll be back, Monday. Yeah. I said, just bring outfit for the weekend. So when we finally got to Atlanta, it was like 10 o'clock at night. And we left 5 o'clock in the morning. So when we got up the next morning, we said, we dodged a bullet. Like, okay. Then Karima calls us to tell us about the levees. So that was the most horrible time of my life. I used to just cry. I cried. This is not my home. I said, I want to go back home, So it took me for a long time to look at the sky and say, well, just the same sky here that it is in New Orleans. I guess you're going to be here. And I used to sit down and say, I don't have to go to school. I don't have to go back to teach. I had done that for 20-something years. I remember we had gone to eat at a steak restaurant, kind of dark in there. And I pushed into the booth, and then I started hyperventilating. And I was like, move, I got to get out. And they were like, what is wrong with you? Everything was closing in on me. And I was like, I wrote letters to FEMA. I called FEMA. They told us to tell us what made me do all of that, and they didn't do a thing. I got nothing. So all of the monies that we had saved went to buy medicine for me. And we lived there for 2.5 years. When we came back 2008, December, we were somebody had given me for Christmas a little card from Walmart or somewhere. I think I had $25. I got the job and I was working. That's how we got to these apartments. And I tell you, when I moved into that apartment, I was keeping the twins. I would walk in there, no furniture, and say, thank you, Lord, I got my own.
Do you hope your grandkids stay in Louisiana or in New Orleans?
No. I hope they stay for college after that thing go where they want, but they're not staying for college. But you know what? And being young men, oh my God. Viola Davis did a thing last night on VH1 about Eric Garner. Until you get the parents and the educational system uplifted, I just don't see New Orleans getting better. I don't. I really don't.